Do you feel the financial markets have managed to gain some type of stability? Don't mistake a short period of market stability for safety. If you haven't been listening to the Financial Safari, your investments and your future financial security could still be at risk. Sitting down with a retirement planning specialist can make all the difference.
In the Birmingham area, call Tad Hill, president of Freedom Financial Group, at 800-929-4077. That's 800-929-4077.
And welcome back in, folks. Of course, this is the Financial Safari. It's your weekly show looking inside that complex financial world. And to make it a little simpler, it's time again, as we do each and every show, to check in with our local trusted advisor. And here in Birmingham, we check in with Chartered Retirement Planning Counselor Tad Hill. Folks, you can reach Tad at any time by dialing toll-free 800-929-4077. John?
Well, thank you very much, Coach. And Tad, how are you this week?
Doing well. How about you guys?
Well, doing great. Certainly always a pleasure to talk with you. Again, Tad Hill, our local trusted advisor right there in the Birmingham area, 800-929-4077. Tad, I think it's important for people to understand how they can eliminate or reduce as many variables as they can in their retirement. I know there are financial advisors out there that like to make plans as complicated as possible with as many moving parts as possible. What's your philosophy on that?
Well, let me say this. I don't disagree with what you just said, but I feel strongly that the reason that happens is more to keep the client dependent on the advisor than it is anything else. You know, I had a conversation with a gentleman. We're going through our retirement roadmap process, and he had hired me back 6 or 8 months ago to do planning for him. But most of his investments were still in company plans and stock plans and that sort of thing. So there wasn't really any financial investment strategies that we were able to implement right away. But that circumstance is changing. He's actually going to be retiring at the end of the year. So we were going through our planning process, and one of the things that I do for all of my clients, but this is an example of how this works, is I say to them, and I said to him, I said, I want you to teach me what we're doing here and why. Because I know that if you can't teach it back to me, then I have failed in my efforts to educate you on what we're doing in your plan and the reasons for it. We're talking about reducing variables, and you're talking about how so many plans have moving parts in them. And there's a lot of people in my business that try to make what we do really sound difficult and arcane and something that you just can't do without them. Now, I will say this. Really good planners provide a service, in my opinion, that it's difficult to do on your own. But really good planners also work with you in a way so that you are not only involved in the decision-making, but you can then turn around and articulate your plan. One of the biggest things that I think people benefit from in going really through a retirement planning process is knowing what they can control and what they can't control. We're talking about reducing variables. It's often that I meet with people and their thought process, their decision-making process is revolving around things that we can't control and we can't know the answer to. So let me ask you a question. Do you think it is a productive use of our time, if we're sitting down together trying to construct a retirement plan for you, is it a constructive use of our time to spend a lot of energy and effort on trying to predict something that no one has ever been able to predict?
Seems like a little bit of a waste, doesn't it?
Do you think it's a constructive use of our time to spend a lot of energy and effort on things that we can't know the answer to?
Again, seems like there are more efficient uses of a meeting with you.
So I say this regularly, and if you're listening, pay attention right now. The quality of the solutions you get are directly related to the quality of the questions you're asking. And what a good retirement planning strategy does is make sure we're asking the right questions. So, what do you think is going to happen in the stock market over the next year or two? Do you think that's an effective question for us to be asking?
Seems pointless. I mean, even if it was trying to figure out what's happening in 2 weeks, who knows?
Let me make a confession. I cannot tell you which way the stock market's going to go in the next 12 months. I can have an opinion, but I can't tell you which way it's going to go. What I can tell you is that if we sit down and put together a strategy so that we are really getting clear on what we can control, and the good news is, here's the good news, a good retirement plan, there are the things that matter the most we can control. And if you've got the right plan in place, it's not dependent on things we can't control. Let me repeat that. If you've got the right plan in place, it's not dependent on the things we can't control. One of the biggest risks to people's retirements today is that their plan is based on things they can't control. Their plan requires that things they can't control go the way they want it to. We've just gotten through with a presidential election. This is a pretty hot topic right now, right? And people, I have heard over and over and over, well, I'm going to wait and see what the outcome of the election is before I do retirement planning. Now, I got to ask you, how do you feel about that as a strategy?
Seems like a bad idea. Very reactionary to what's going on around you, when in reality, you could create a plan that it doesn't matter what happens. It doesn't matter as much, I should say, what happens in the world around you.
Yeah, I mean, can we, other than going out and casting our vote, can we control who gets elected?
Not much more you can do than that, unless you know how to rig voting machines, which is another story for another day.
Right. Yeah, if we could, maybe dredge up our ancestors and somehow figure out a way to vote for them too.
Right.
So, if the person that you didn't want in the White House is in the White House, does that mean we shouldn't have a retirement plan?
No, sir.
So, if we can't control who wins an election, and we agree that regardless of who's in the White House, it's probably in our best interest to have a retirement plan, should we focus on the things that we can control, or should we focus on the things that we can't control?
Well, my dad always told me, do what you can, no matter what you're doing. If you're working at a job and your coworkers don't work as hard as you think they should, doesn't matter. Do what you can. Control what you can. If you're playing basketball and for whatever reason, the refs aren't in your favor, doesn't matter. Play hard. Do what you can. Control the things that you can control.
That's exactly right. And the good news is, if we ask the right questions and we have a good retirement plan in place, we can reduce a tremendous amount of the variables that are currently plaguing people's retirement plans. Because the question you asked me at the start of this conversation was, why do you think so many people have plans that have so many variables in them and moving parts? And why do advisors do that? One of the reasons I think advisors do that is because they feel like it makes their clients more dependent on them. I actually believe the exact opposite. Our clients are smart, educated people that have done a very good job of saving for retirement. They have planned well, but they are aware of the fact that there is a shift that needs to occur from growth planning that took place in their 30s and 40s to protection and income planning and distribution planning that takes place in our 50s, 60s, and 70s. They intuitively understand that. They don't know exactly how to do it. So that's where we come in. And we reduce those variables by asking the good questions. So back to my client that was in here the other day. I said to him, explain back to me what your plan is designed to do and why we've designed it this way. And we spent a good 30 minutes going through that, because here's what happens. If you explain it back to me, then I know which pieces you're less clear on. And then we can focus on those same things so that by the time we've implemented a plan, not only have we asked the right questions, we've reduced the variables, we've controlled the things that we can control, we've created a plan that is not dependent on things that we can't control. But if you can explain it back to me, then I know not only are we on the same page, but we've got something we're both committed to. If you're listening today and you would like to have that kind of process take place for yourself, ask the right questions, know what you can control, have a plan for the things that we can control that will get us where we want to be one of the first 5 callers, and I will set aside time on my calendar so that you can receive completely free our retirement roadmap review. So if you're one of the first 5 callers on the 800 number, we will set aside time to do this. We do require that you have a minimum of $500,000 of investable assets. But if so, I'm willing to do this review at no cost and no obligation to you. It takes place in our office on the corner of Valleydale and Caldwell Mill here in Indian Springs. But the purpose of this review is so that you can fully understand how your financial life is really structured today and what needs to happen to prepare you for retirement and eliminate those variables. We call it uncovering all the must-know facts, uncovering the things that need to be understood before we make investment decisions. The good news is that once we go through this process, you will be able to understand exactly how a plan needs to be structured and what the plan is designed to do to protect you and your loved ones for this very important time in your life, which is retirement. I call it 30 years of unemployment. How do we replace the paycheck? That's what this process does. So if you're one of the first 5 callers, you've got a minimum of $500,000 of investable assets, we will sit down with you and do our retirement roadmap review completely free with no cost and no obligation.
Well, it's a terrific offer. And again, Tad Hill is our local trusted advisor right there in the Birmingham area. The number to call is 800-929-4077, 800-929-4077. Tad's the president of Freedom Financial Group, and as you've just heard here over the course of the last 10 minutes or so, he's somebody who can take the complexities of the financial world and really break it down for you in a way that's easy to understand. He's not going to try to talk over your head, not going to try to make things more complicated than they really need to be. So give him a call, 800-929-4077, and start the process of getting your financial roadmap put together. No cost or obligation to get this assessment for people who call in from the radio show right now. Again, 800-929-4077.